This program is produced by Eagle Mountain Apostolic Resource Center. To find additional episodes of this program, as well as other content, visit eaglemountain.tv. This program is about stewarding the word God has given. It's about putting apostolic feet to prophetic hope. It's our mission to purposefully equip the world to transform their regions with God's love. We want to create an atmosphere of divine influence to the nations by walking in the power of His Holy Spirit with the faith that shapes the future. Welcome to Inside the Ark.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Inside the Ark. I am with Becky and Chris Behnke, and we're coming at you with some, what do we call this? Fuego?
Some fire, some deep dives into messages.
Into messages that we have felt like the Lord's speaking to us around here, and we wanted to bless you with them. The short condensed version, just again, the fire hose. And this one is about your testimony releases life. It's a download that I got from the Lord. We're going to discuss it. We want you to put, if you're watching this, we want you to put in the notes how it's blessing you and some of the thoughts that you have too. And then let's dive into it. Now, the topic sentence was this: when we speak what God has done, it releases the reality of His goodness for us today. People need to hear the good news. So God created the word of our testimony.
Wow.
That's how we overcome, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. What do you guys think about that?
Well, first off, I think it's rather interesting because, you know, when we talk about the gospel, the good news of Christ, number one, if we only focused on God, then how's the good news going to be spread?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, and then also, why does it need to be spread if we're just concerned about ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So the blood of the Lamb is how salvation takes place. But the word of our testimony is how salvation is spread.
Oh, come on.
That's really cool.
And so if we're not focused on looking, and the word of our testimony is, what is Jesus doing in our lives?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it is not just for salvation, but it's the everyday. Here's Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here's who He is.
Yeah.
Here's the revelation of Christ. And the blood wasn't just for salvation only. It's overcoming. So overcoming it doesn't happen just at salvation. Overcome is a process of living life with Christ. We overcome the world, right? He who overcomes the world, that is an overcoming lifestyle. But that's going to come through the appropriation of the blood. So it's recognizing the sacrifice that Jesus made, what the blood does, that blood is now in us because we're new creations. But then it goes further to say, but that's not alone what helps you to overcome. You have to not only know what God's done in your life, but you have to hear from everyone else what God is doing in their lives. So when it says, don't forsake the gathering together, as some have done in the scriptures, how much of a missing out happens when you stay at home and you're not hearing the great testimony of what Christ is doing? Now, granted, being online gives us a lot of opportunity to do that and to see that. But are we using the online access that God has given to us to share the testimony of Christ?
Right.
Or are we using it to
only
put down other people or to show, other things instead of using it for the glory of God?
That's good.
So testimony is huge.
Yeah.
Testimony is life. Testimony is overcoming.
Yeah. I mean, it gives kind of a authority and a validity to what you're saying. I believe that God will speak directly to some people sometimes and just like, boom. But a lot of times, you know, the Gideons put Bibles in every hotel room. Like the word is out there, but why doesn't it resonate with people? And I think a lot of times it's because they haven't met the Christian with the testimony that they can relate to, that they see themselves in.
Right.
Because we're not doing what you're saying as much as we should, and actually sharing the power of what God has done in our lives. And that could be for 2 or 3 reasons. One reason could be that we're not bold enough for some reason, but another reason could be that we don't have a really great testimony because we're kind of just floating along. So we got to be doing stuff also so that we have testimony to share.
Wow.
Right?
We do. And I think too, it's, we have a responsibility to train our children to also see God and what his glory, how he is, what he is doing in our lives and in others' lives, and to be able to articulate that and communicate that as a testimony as well. How many times have I heard, I'd be a millionaire if I had money for every time I heard this from a young person, where I'm like, okay, glory, we call it glory story time. Share your glory stories. And they're like, well, I don't have one. And I'm like, okay, yes, you do. Number one, are you looking at it with the eyes of understanding that God is, what he's doing in your life is more than what you're recognizing that he's doing in your life? And I will hear them say, well, he hasn't done anything. I could be a millionaire off of the times that I've heard that. And I know I'm hearing it because I'm in a role where I get to hear that, training youth right now. But my response isn't like shock. My response is actually, okay, I have more work to do to help them recognize God in their lives. And I'm like, are you breathing right now? Yes.
It's pretty glorious.
That's a glory story. Did you drive here without incident? Yes. Glory story. And they're like, well, come on. And I'm like, okay, did you get that job that you went for? Yes. Glory story. Did you have any qualifications for that job? No. Glory story.
For sure not.
Because you got a job that you were not qualified for. You definitely don't look the part for, and you don't know anything of what you're doing.
That's a glory story.
That's a glory story.
Sure. Exactly.
So we are seeing the light, like we are getting more hands raised as to, okay, I've got a glory story, but that's like a little, I think, picture into society today.
Yeah.
And how much we aren't sharing testimony because we've become numb to the things that God is doing in our lives.
Yeah.
The word testimony, the definition of that word means to do it again. And so what that means is that the testimony of Jesus Christ is the spirit of prophecy, as the book of Revelation says. So what that means is when you have the essence of testimony, it prophesies, hey, if God did this, he's no respecter of persons. He didn't just do it for one time for one person. He did it for all people. And so you can grab onto someone else's testimony. I think we've all been encouraged by when people have shared their testimony and how it affects me.
Yeah.
I know that there's some people who I know have been through amazing things with the Lord, and I love hearing their stories.
Yeah.
We were doing that last night.
Yes.
And I love that. It inspires me. It puts my spirit in alignment. And then there are other people that I know who've been through really hard things. And the Lord has brought them through really hard things. And when you get on the phone with them, it like brings perspective to what you may be going through.
Oh, totally. It's like a washing of the word happening over you.
And when too, sometimes you're like, well, I was going to complain, but now that I remember who I'm talking to,
yes, I
feel better just knowing like the testimony of what that person has, gone through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you can put like, of all the things that could have overcome the enemy, it was those two things. Of all the things that could have been said, the blood of the lamb, we know that's massive, right? We all talk about that.
Right.
But I don't think that we understand the word of our testimony was right up there.
Right.
Because there could have been two other things that were said.
Right.
We know the blood of the lamb. We get that one.
Yeah.
But I don't think we get the power of the second one. And so what does it look like to constantly be looking for ways to say, gosh, this is how God's blessed me. And I think when we don't do that, we're void of praise. When it's time to praise, we don't have anything on our lips. We're like, ooh. And who was it that said, it was the psalmist that said, offer the fruit of your lips continually.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the praise of God.
You know, I also like linking our testimony with the revelation of God. And so I think of, the book of Revelation where it says the revelation of Jesus. And that phrase, the revelation of Jesus. So if my testimony isn't revealing Jesus, then I'm still missing something. And so whenever I'm in a bad spot in my mind, like we'll never make it, you often do this to me. You're like, okay, so let's talk about Jesus. And we start revealing who Jesus is and then we start looking for that revelation of his nature.
Ooh, that's good, Becky.
Yeah. And then it changes, like you said, Chris, it changes our perspective. And instead of going, we're not going to make it through this trial, we start remembering, oh, he's the captain of the Lord of hosts.
Yeah.
Oh, he is the great provider.
Right.
He's got things in mind that we remember when he did this. Remember when he provided for this. Remember when we didn't have this and he did this. And then we start, that's like our beginning. And then as we continue in conversation, we start going into more revelation of Jesus that we have yet to experience.
Right.
And then we start to go level up on this. We get inspired to go after knowing God like that.
Right.
Going, man, oh, that's so cool. I love that he does that.
Yeah.
Even though maybe it's nothing that we've, tangibly experienced, it doesn't matter. By that point in our conversation, in our testimony, we are at a place where it's all about him.
Oh yeah.
And we're only focused on who he is.
So my testimony,
all the cares go away.
My testimony can't just be about my past.
Yeah.
That's really good. It's got to be about revealing Jesus. It can't be, let's talk about what he hasn't done or he's not doing. It's got its essence is to reveal Jesus. That is the essence of the testimony.
Yeah.
Is to reveal Jesus.
So it has to be unfolding, you're saying, not just a historical occurrence, but unfolding.
Yeah.
But historical occurrences are very important.
Yes.
We talk about markers and all the things, but it also has to be unfolding is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah. And pointed at Jesus. Cause if I just start getting off into, I think Graham Cook used to say it this way, your testimony can't just be your history. Like I used to do drugs.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And then what? Where's the Jesus part of that story?
Right.
It can't just be your past. It can't just be your history. It's got to reveal Jesus.
Yeah.
So, wow, what a great testimony. Gosh, you used to do all kinds of horrible things and you've been in jail 5 times and you blah, 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 blah. And now I know you were a problem child. Wow.
Right.
No, the testimony can't be the fact that it revealed that I'm not necessarily talking about me.
Yeah,
just
that's not true, people.
That person, some people out there, not me. I was perfect. And so, but it can't just reveal your stuff. It can't just reveal even your need for God.
Right.
Right.
It's got to reveal God.
Wow. Well, and I love it when we get into conversation too, and we talk about, Jesus here on earth. And we look at Jesus here on earth and what he was doing and how he was responding or things that he was about, and we look at it in different ways. Yeah. From all different perspectives and angles. And then we see so much of the goodness of who he is. And every time that we look at him from a different viewpoint, and what joy that brings and strength it brings to an individual when we do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's seeing Jesus, like the, even in heaven, when it talks about, they cry, holy, holy, holy. And as the angels are crying out, holy, 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 they're doing it because Jesus turned ever so slightly and they had a new revelation of who he was that they've never seen before. And it's like, he's just this faceted gem that we will for eternity see new, you know, the newness of who he is and the things that he forever. Yeah. Forever. And you know how I can tell you that's true? If you have a spouse out there, tell me you don't know that, you know everything about that spouse. I've been married to this guy for a lot of years and I still am like, learning new things about him every day. And it's
good
just,
things. She's learning new good things about him.
It's amazing. It is so amazing because guess what? He is ever unfolding before me. He is ever in growth becomes a new, as he grows, there's something new. So there's this ever unfolding of who he's always been, but there's also this growth. And as we grow, we learn new things about each other. So the testimony of Jesus, as we are communicating to everyone else, there's something always, even in what we testify of, even of what we share, it's living word. We're sharing about the living word. And as we share about the living word is living. Yeah. And it's affecting and impacting, our lives, even if you've heard that story 100 times. Right. Doesn't matter.
Wow. Still is affecting.
So let's talk about, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I was just thinking of this. I was just thinking of this kind of important aspect of testimony that we need to make sure that we get our head around. Because I think one of the problems that we have today that I see is somebody's going through something difficult and they're like, look, man, you just need Jesus. Yeah. And that's actually true, except for that's not really helpful to them in that moment if they don't understand what that means. And usually in that moment, they don't. So this is where the partnering with Jesus, with your testimony, actually puts a picture to you just need Jesus words that they can see themselves in. So it is true, the words, but they will fall on deaf ears when someone's at their low point. But if you say, hey man, this is what Jesus did for me in a low point that's similar to your low point, they can then begin to see the Jesus in that story and themselves in that story. And that's where the partnership of the testimony, it becomes so powerful. This is why we've got to be doing things with Jesus, or we will not have the testimony to share when the people we care about need it. If we're just, floating along, then we won't have that testimony to share. And then it's flat. It becomes flat.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wouldn't discount your testimonies. Some of you hear, testimonies from amazing people who were spared out of sex trafficking or, just different things that are like magnanimous to us. And you're like, gosh, I grew up in a small town. Here's my testimony. I've known Jesus all my life. I really never got busted by the cops or, did stupid stuff or whatever. Yeah. And like, we feel like you got to do something horrible to have a testimony. You know what I mean? And we just we love inflated things and we love the, how the Lord swoops in at the last minute and just rescues us from stupidity and all that. And that's awesome. Those are stories that God does. And the Bible's full of those stories. But then the Bible's also full of people who stayed faithful to the Lord. Right. And their testimony is, I met him. I got rocked by him and I served him my whole life.
Right. Come on.
I met him when I was 6 and that's my story. I stayed faithful to the Lord all my life and that's my testimony.
Well, I have kids, I teach kids and it is amazing to hear every week their testimony. Now you would think, okay, they're just kids.
Right.
And just so everyone knows,
amazing.
how old What are we talking about?
3 to 11 years old.
And they're coming in with powerful testimony.
They are coming in with powerful testimonies. And a lot of the testimonies are, it is like, well, this is what God said to me, and this is what I did, and this is how it turned out. And it's just simple, but that is a testimony.
Come on.
That is a glory story.
Oh, yeah.
Or
So
they'll
good.
come in and they'll say, I just knew that God just wanted, they'll come in from worship. Okay. And they'll say, there was like this ceiling, and we were all in worship, and all the grownups kept just bouncing their heads against the ceiling. And then I just said, oh, Jesus, raise that ceiling for them. Their heads are getting hurt. And the ceiling went away. And then they all were able to, go as high as they wanted.
I'm so glad they're in there.
That's their testimony.
Wow.
So there, like you said, Chris, there's this partnering that can take place, and the testimony is the journey of that partnering together with God.
Yeah, come on.
Wow. So your testimony is so powerful, and it's so important. And if you feel like if God's putting you around people that you haven't gone through their situation, it doesn't matter, because your testimony, this is not based on human experience.
Right.
So you don't have to be like the gangbanger in order to talk to the gangbanger. As a matter of fact, God rarely does that. He'll take the gangbanger and put him on Wall Street. He'll take the Apostle Paul, who's super studious, and put him with the thugs. He'll take Peter and put him with the educated. I mean, that's just how the Lord does it. So don't think for a second that the fact that you don't have any major, behind the enemy lines, bombs bursting everywhere, rescues,
totally.
Right.
that somehow your testimony isn't fit for the person in dire straits. It's just not true. All you have to say is what God has done for you. I don't know if the guy said, I was blind, but now I see.
Right.
That testimony works for everyone.
Come on.
Whether they were blind, or whether they were in financial issues, or whether they were in marital issues, he could have told his testimony to anybody, anywhere, at all times, and it's always relevant.
Right.
The point is it reveals Jesus.
Right.
And if God can do something supernatural for someone who needed to see, then he can do something supernatural for you, whatever your need is.
Yeah.
And he can do something supernatural for the people that you're sharing your testimony. So just share your story. The point is, don't devalue it. Any last thoughts before we finish our time?
I would
think
love
it's
for you
good.
to reach out to someone. I just want to encourage you. First off, if you don't think that you have a testimony outside of salvation, I would encourage you just to say, Lord, open my eyes and let me see you. And let me see the glory stories that you're doing in my life. And then share those with somebody else.
Come on.
And spark and inspire them to start looking. It starts with us looking. We need to start looking for what God's doing.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, Lord, thank you for the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. We see today a little bit more how powerful that is. We're going to remind ourselves of the testimony. We're going to remind ourselves of all the greatness that you've done in our lives.
Yes.
And we see today how we really do go from glory to glory to glory to glory. So you're obviously doing things in our lives. Lord, if we haven't seen them or haven't attributed them to you, or we're caught in some sort of lie and demonic spirit that doesn't let us see our testimonies, it keeps us from the truth of the greatness of what you're doing, then we unpartner with that grief.
Come on.
That keeps us in the past. We unpartner with depression. We unpartner with the lie that keeps us from seeing that God's doing anything great. We unpartner with that, and we get back into the testimony, God is good. And maybe you have to say that over yourself several times just to break the lie. He is with you. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's see the power of our testimony. Now, to get this whole message, just click on the show notes, the link there. It'll take you right to the full message. And then also go to our website, eaglemountain.global. You can see all of the other messages, things we have going on, things that we're doing all over the globe. And you can partner with us by clicking on Give. We appreciate and love your support. And also get our app. It's on the Android platform. It's also on the Apple platform. That way you can see highlights, message highlights, what events are happening around Eagle Mountain. But most of all, we just thank you for being our family, being our partners. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time on another episode of Inside the Ark.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Inside the Ark. We hope that you've been blessed by this program. If you'd like to discover other episodes of Inside the Ark, please visit eaglemountain.global. We'd also love for you to prayerfully consider supporting this and other programs available on Eagle Mountain TV. You can give to this ministry by visiting eaglemountain.global and clicking on the Give tab. We hope to see you in the next episode.